agenda this evening. Hang on, I'm still getting caught up with board docs here. My iPad just blinked. All right, first order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe Mr. Smith?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have the great honor of introducing a wonderful middle school central student this evening to honor and then to also lead us in the pledge. Jasmine, I'll have you come on up here and stand next to me. This is the wonderful Jasmine Kagan. She is an 8th grader at Middle School Central. One thing that I can say for certain is in our kind of mission that we want to accomplish with every student at Middle School Central is to have a great balance between academics and social, and Jasmine epitomizes those two characteristics. She is a leader in our building. She's a member of student council. She's been honored in National Junior Honor Society. She participates in athletics. She is a model student. I just finished up celebrating her this evening when we took our straight A for all 3 years out to dinner. We had 13 students, and she was one of them. So great accomplishment there. My proudest moment, which is going to be kind of neat, which I don't even know if she remembers this, is when I tweeted out a picture when we both showed up at school dressed as superheroes. I was Superman and she was Superwoman. So that was kind of nice as we entered into October. I think you were a 7th grader then, right? So she just really is a true leader. We plant a lot of seeds in the middle school, and our hope is that they bloom when they get to the high school. Jasmine bloomed in middle school, and we know that we're sending over a wonderful student to the high school as a representative of our next 8th grade class that will be freshman next year. So I turn it over to Jazzy to say the pledge. I would like to say that one of her teachers wrote about her. And before I turn it over to her, I'd like to finish with her words because they know her best. Jazzy is one of the most kind, caring, and compassionate young ladies I have ever had the pleasure of working with. She goes above and beyond in her academics, and she always makes sure to make everyone feel included in day-to-day activities. I'm honored to have the opportunity to work with her over the past 3 years. That was for Mr. Schmidt. All right, I turn it over.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our next order of business is adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. Thank you, Mr. Russell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up is recognition and presentations and the Shining Star Award. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Arkanoff.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. This evening, the board, on occasion, will award someone with the Shining Star Award. The Shining Star Award recognizes the employee or student or community member who goes beyond the expected to make the Center Grove community a better place. And so this evening, we have Mr. Peterson, I believe, is going to come up. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, sir, if you would come up and kind of share with us the Shining Star Award, and I believe, Mrs. Toomey, you were a part of this recommendation. So,
Can we have Andrew come on up?
yeah, yes, sir. Let's have Andrew come up. All right.
Thank you. This evening I want to recognize this young man, a for what happened on Tuesday, April 3rd. On that particular day, if you can remember, we had a very bad storm hit our area. And if we're going to have bad weather in Center Grove, it's going to happen at route time. When we're picking up kids, when we're dropping them off, that's when it's going to hit. Well, that particular morning, our rain, it fell hard and fast. So all of our drivers were told to please be careful, be on the watch for rising water, and please pick up students that are standing on the side of the road, regardless of what school they go to. Get them on the bus, get them safe, we'll figure it out later. Do not attempt, like I said, to go over any type of roadway that has water over it. Now, bus 67, which is a high school only bus, which was on Beaumar Lane picking up students. This is off of County Line Road. She noticed at the time the water was up to the roadway but not over the road. She attempted to make her turnaround in the circle when her right front tire went off the roadway and became stuck in the water-soaked ground. The driver radioed in to me stating that she could not move and was concerned about the rising water in her area. Now, as I made my way to her, the driver continued to report that the water was now close to her service door and was continuing to rise. A difficult decision that I had to make at the time was to tell her to keep the students on the bus due to the multiple lightning strikes we had in the area. When I finally got to the bus about 5 minutes later, water was already up to the first step and going past it through the service door and continuing to rise. Now, I radioed a middle school bus, a middle school north bus who was in the area very close by to please come and assist to get these students off the bus and get them evacuated. The middle school bus, which had stopped to pick up some of the high school students, was about a minute away. When she arrived, she stopped at our location. She opened up her door to receive the students I was about to evacuate off of bus 67. Now, at this time, the water is continuing to rise. It's up to my knees as I'm standing to the back of the bus. I opened the rear emergency door of this bus 67, told the students on board they're going to get their feet wet that morning, but they're going to have a great story to tell their grandchildren. As I was about ready to help the first student off, a young man appeared next to me. He stated he was there to help me with the evacuation of the passengers. Now, this young man stayed the entire time, helped students off the bus, held belongings, showed them where to walk, stayed with me until the bus was cleared and the driver was off. Now, it was not until after the passengers were off of this bus and on the other one that I learned that he was a high school student who was picked up by the middle school bus. When she opened her door to receive the passengers, Andrew here got up, told the driver he was going to help, and waded through the water to assist. Once all the students were on board the rescue bus, this young man then helped the driver get herself turned around and back up the roadway where we now had a reserve bus waiting. Once there, he again assisted making sure all students were transferred to the new bus. Now, Andrew here did not think twice about himself that morning. He saw a need, immediately reacted. Not only did he assist me, but he stayed calm. He reassured the students everything was okay, smiled, and joked with his fellow passengers. His actions, his assistance, and his presence helped calm his fellow students and make a very scary situation seem like an adventure. So Andrew, on behalf of Center Grove Transportation, the high school, the administration, and I'd like to say the school board as well, thank you. Truly here. Thank you. Marlene has something here for you as well.
I've been from Center Grove for 45 years, and I've tried to encourage students for all my life to do just the things that you did to make a difference. And I wanted to be one of the first ones to give you a graduation gift. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Toomey and Mrs. West for bringing that to our attention and getting that written up. And Andrew, thank you, and we can't express that enough. All right, our next order of business. Dr. Arkanoff, the AHA jump rope for heart recognition.
Thank you.
Now it's on.
Okay, thank you. This evening, we'd like to have some recognition for the AHA Jump Rope for Heart program, and I believe with us is Jen Nanny. Is that correct, Jen? Okay, if you want to come on up here. Jen's is youth marketing for the GRFW director with the American Heart Association, and she'll be recognizing our elementary PE teachers.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here tonight to share with the school board and guests that we have some fabulous volunteers and schools that have been partnering with the American Heart Association for over, next year will be our 40th anniversary, and I believe that we have at least 3 of the 5 that will have celebrated their 40th next year with us, and I think that's pretty neat. This school district is such a fabulous supporter of the American Heart Association, and heart disease is the #1 cause of death in America. This is one time I can honestly say we do not wish to be #1. #2 would be a great spot. And these volunteers in the schools are going above and beyond to share heart health awareness with the students, because we want to be #2. We want their generation to live longer than our generation. And I just want to, again, say thank you for all of what the school support that we receive. And ways that we are able to give back through the American Heart Association, through partnering with our schools, are U.S. Game certificates. And it's nice that I have Mr. Briles here tonight that I can share. For example, he and his school, Center Grove, and Mrs. Nelson's here, we have been able to provide over $5,000 just in the last 2 years in U.S. Games so they can buy PE and recess equipment. And so that's a nice way that we are able to give back, so we are able to let them use that how they see fit as a thank you as well. And in addition, they received their curriculum and other educational resources, so we appreciate that so much. And it's also very fitting that Mr. Briles is here, because he is Center Grove Elementary School happens to be the #3 largest jump rope for heart event in the state of Indiana. So I think that is something very, very much to be proud of. So even though I want to recognize all the schools and volunteers, I definitely want to say a special thank you to all of his hard work. He goes way above and beyond. So thank you personally from me and the American Heart Association. So. So I would just like to provide him with a certificate of appreciation with profound gratitude for continued commitment to building healthier lives free of cardiovascular disease and stroke, and from the American Heart Association. So I will provide this to him. Thank you. I will just share the other names. Lisa Gunman's son at Pleasant Grove, Bernie Doyle at Maple Grove Elementary School. I always pronounce his first name wrong, Levin Clark at North Grove. I'm sure I messed that up. Elementary. And now Jason Moeller, moving forward, will be participating at Sugar Grove Elementary School. So very proud to celebrate our 40th year with them, and thank you again for all of your community support. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. There were no public comments regarding agenda items. Thank you, Pam. Consent agenda, Dr. Arkanoff.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. This evening, I'm recommending the board approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the consent items as projected.
Presented.
Presented.
Presented?
The P word.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Any questions or discussion about the consent agenda?
Darn muscle relaxant.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes, I think, 5-0, Pam. Did I hear?
No, I said aye.
Okay, sorry.
It was just a fun aye. Similar to Mr. Russell's pee.
All right,
Thank you very much.
on to action items. Accept quote for LED wall display at the high school. Dr. Arkanoff.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. This evening, I'm recommending that the board accept a quote for the LED wall display at the high school. Dr. Long will provide you with some additional information.
Thank you. Before we start, I'd like to recognize Mrs. Dice and Jen Dice and Matt Murray in the back. This kind of started as a brainstorm of Mrs. Dice's. As we started looking into it, I asked Matt if he would help us out and try to figure out the right configuration and the right company. And so Matt did all the really hard, dirty work to figure this out. And I'm really appreciative of the effort that he put in. So we asked 3 contractors to quote an LED wall display for the high school auditorium. The quotes for the signage range from $147,699.94 up to $164,892. We recommend accepting the quote from Circle City Audio in the amount of $147,699.94 for the wall display at the high school.
Thank you, Dr. Long. Do I have a motion?
I move that we, how do I word it now? Tell you my brain's going. Accept the quote from Circle City Audio, Inc.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Russell and Mr. Daniels. Any questions or discussion?
Dr. Long, if you could you just expound a little as to exactly what our proposed use is for the board?
I will, and again, you know, because of Matt's work in making a special configuration for this, or figuring out what configuration, we'll use this. Our show choirs will be able to use it, both while they're in the auditorium and can take it on the road as part of their shows. But because of the way we have it configured, we'll also have a second wall that we can use in the auditorium. And I envision, and talking to Matt and Dr. Arkanoff, we'd use that for a variety of things. For example, I would think in the future we might have this on stage for graduation, and we can either broadcast the graduation, or you know, you can have a backdrop on there. We can use it in the auditorium for almost whatever, any event that we have in the auditorium, we'll be able to project it on there. I know we've also talked about the possibility of using it for some advertisements for when we have the large events in the auditorium as well. So we might put sponsors or vendors on it too.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but there was also a use for one of the science
I
classes.
believe it was a biomed class. They could, I'm going to say Skype. I don't think that's the right word, but they can Skype in to a surgery. Yeah, it's close enough.
Close enough, Jason.
I think all of us young folks know what Skype is.
Well, I believe in anatomy class, don't they still watch an autopsy or something to that
think so.
effect?
I know in the past they've watched surgeries.
Yeah.
And this would allow them to project it on a
Yeah.
significant screen for educational
Very
use?
large, yes, sir.
Neat.
A little bigger than just a
Yeah,
12-inch.
Than this thing?
yes, yeah.
Who does the screen fall under for responsibility?
I'm letting Matt be in charge of it. I don't know if we've had that conversation yet or not, but I think as an auditorium manager, it falls under his responsibility. So if people are interested in using it, they can sign it out or schedule at the same time they schedule the auditorium. They'd have the ability
It's
to
an additional
schedule.
resource.
Yes, sir.
for the, like microphones and lights.
Right, right. Anytime you know, if you need 6 lavalier mics, you can also ask for the LED wall as well.
So Matt, do you understand what you just signed up for?
He didn't.
Actually, you know what you just got voluntold?
So we expect you not to lose it?
That's Mrs. Dice. His won't leave.
Thank goodness Spencer graduated. All right, any other questions or discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Murray
Thank you.
and Mrs. Dice. All right, next up is accept quote for outdoor LED signage. Dr. Arkanoff.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. This evening, I'm recommending the board to accept quotes for outdoor LED signage for all of our schools, and I will have Dr. Long provide you with some additional information.
Thank you. Tonight with us from Daktronics, we have Paul Palmer here. He's here to answer all the hard questions. I'd really like to thank Mr. Palmer publicly. We've been working on this in different variations for the last couple of years. I think, you know, one of Dr. Arkanoff's vision was for us to have signage in front of the schools that was, we could live feed it, use it for announcements throughout the corporation. And this will allow us to have an electronic sign in front of every single school. The building principals will be able to push items to it, but Mrs. Conrad will also be able to do it through the controls. So we're really excited. We recommend accepting the quote from Daktronics in the amount of $758,692 for electronic message displays at all schools and additional outdoor video displays at the high school. Mrs. Parker's been kind of scrolling through all of the signage, kind of the rendering. They've worked really hard with us to try to make this a constant theme, so when you drive around and you see, you know, Maple Grove Elementary, but you also know that it's part of the Center Grove School Corporation. Daktronics signage is sold through a national purchasing cooperative, the National Intergovernmental Purchasing Alliance, and have been through the bid process. Funds for the project will come from the remaining balance of bonds sold for Walnut Grove Elementary, and we recommend the board approve these tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Long. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the quote for outdoor LED signage at multiple schools.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. Any questions or discussion?
I just like that it will be nice that around the corporation will be the consistency of the signage and the Center Grove emblem on there, Center Grove Corporation emblem. But then each school has its individuality also on there. Being able to put out messages around the corporation will be great, because I think a lot of people read those more than we know.
Long overdue.
Dr. Long, I guess I just have one question on it, and I think I may have had some conversations with you before about it too. Our main entrance is really becoming the Hall of Excellence more than the administrative entrance. And with that Hall of Excellence entrance, I'm very happy to see the size of the board that's going to be outside the football stadium, which hopefully not only will be used when kids walk in, but when others visit our school. And hopefully we'll be able to get some revenue back through advertising. I know there's been some discussions there too.
Yes.
My question is the sign on the other side, the sign by what is technically the main entrance.
The main entrance.
Door one.
Interesting enough, one of my first jobs when I got here 20 years ago was to find a replacement for the sign, and that's the sign that's out there right now. It's beyond its lifespan. It doesn't work anymore properly, and I've had to ask the high school administrators to not put in a work order to repair it in hopes that the board would approve this. Think, you know, if you look at traffic and share information with the corporation, maybe two of the busiest roads that we have are, Stones Crossing Road and Morgantown Road. And with this plan, we have two different venues, I guess, to share information about upcoming events or the corporation and everything. And I think one of the board members called this entrance at the Hall of Excellence the official entrance, our main entrance. And so we do have two main entrances, and this way we have the ability to share that information and provide that to people no matter which way they come into the building.
And how much specifically is that sign on the main entrance, not the unofficial, but the official main entrance compared to the whole package?
Hang on just for a second.
Is that what you're asking about?
Yes, yes. I think it's slide 3. But then that's fine. You probably have to look at the quote. I was trying to determine that from the materials.
Wait a minute, it'll pull up here in a second.
And I guess while you're looking that up, I think the signage is a great idea. I'm just asking the board to consider if we think this one's necessary with it not being our official, and what is the benefit of having on both sides? And I appreciate, Dr. Rowan, you're saying that people do drive by it, people do see it.
I think it is.
Is that it?
Well, you also want the ability
I
to,
gotta wait and see all of them at the same time.
Okay.
you also gotta wait to, or you want the ability to push messages out to all the signs
Yeah.
at once. If you leave that old one there, that would be an ability we
No,
wouldn't be able to have.
Yeah, because technology would match.
Which might be a little bit of the point of the whole project if it's not consistent.
I like the thought.
I think, as I'm still waiting, sorry for this to come up, the other thing to consider is in my talks with Johnson County Highway Department, eventually, maybe sooner than later, Morgantown Road will become a 4-lane road, and so we may even have more increased traffic at the front of the building than we do now, especially during and after the construction of I-69. So I think, I'll tell you the price in a minute. Do you want me to dance a little bit while we're waiting for it to?
Well, and I guess, Bill, while you're dancing, there's a couple comments I'll make. So the sign that we have projected for
Was that it?
facing Stone.
49.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the 49,000. I believe it's the
Is it
49.
49, Paul? Okay, it's the 49,127. Okay, so 49,127 is the cost of that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, now it opened.
So the sign we have facing Stones Crossing Road, I think is a good start. I think we've talked about this a little bit. It's not quite what I had envisioned, but we got to start somewhere. So, and I could also see one day doing something, as the kids and people are walking into the building, that they could read as they're walking in, because that's a long walk if you park out, clearing the North 40. So that give you plenty of time to read what's going on in the building, and those types of things. So I think the thought was getting it in places that promote all the things we have going on inside the high school, since, we've said it before, we're the center of the community. So, whether it's the plays, the spring spec, the basketball game, the percussion, the teacher of the year, as people are walking in, if we had something centered around the Hall of Excellence, and maybe as we're thinking about what to do about that entrance down the road. So right now, it doesn't make sense to do it based on some other thoughts. But
We talked about, maybe putting it on the building at some point in
Right.
time, but until we've figured out what
Right.
the east side of the high school looks like,
Right.
you'd hate to spend that
Right.
and then have to move it, so.
Agreed. So, but just as we're doing those thoughts and
And I think
plans.
this will give us a good idea of the visibility and the usage of it.
Right.
So when we plan the next one, we might have something else in mind.
Awesome.
What's the time frame getting these done?
Tomorrow is what I've asked
Okay.
Mr. Palmer, so.
Oh,
I'll give you to the end of the workday.
We think it'll be, the lead time's about 6 to 8 weeks.
That soon?
And
Okay.
scheduling everything, you know, obviously our goal, and I know you hear me say this every time I talk, is we'd like to have it before the start of school, which is, I can just hit that on a loop. But 6 to 8 weeks, even 8 weeks, we'll have some of them. We may not have them all done in time.
That's pretty close.
but-
Dr. Long,
tight.
Dr. Long, you're gonna have a busy summer.
I know.
He always does.
You
Of course,
take-
we
you
try to
take-
keep him out of trouble.
You take your vacation in the winter, right?
I did, yeah, so.
Some of them fit the existing.
Right, some
frame.
of them will, most of them will go almost you know, where they are, so we don't have to run wiring. One of the things that Dr. Arkanoff challenged us to do is to look at moving Center Grove Elementaries, not so close to the building, but maybe a little farther out on the road, and the same thing at Maple Grove. You know, their sign's up close to the building, we'd like to push that out on Whiteland Road, so more people get more information that way, we think, with both of those signs, so we're gonna work on that as well.
Very good.
I appreciate your efforts and working with Daktronics to bring this to us.
They've been great partners,
Good work.
so.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, accept bid for temperature controller at Maple Grove. Dr. Arkanoff, or should I just direct it to Dr. Long?
Thank you. This evening, I'm recommending that the board accept the bid for temperature control at Maple Grove, and Dr. Long will provide you with some additional information.
Thank you. On April 26th, summer's flying by already, so on April 26th, 2018, we opened 2 bids for the temperature control replacement panel at Maple Grove Elementary, and after analysis by Stair Associates, they recommend accepting the bid from Siemens in the amount of $160,000. We'll pay for this out of our capital projects fund, and again, the work will begin immediately with an expected completion date before school starts. I don't know how to do anything else, so.
Just have a button
That's right.
before school starts.
And said that was easy.
All right, do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the bid from Siemens in the amount of $160,000 for the temperature control replacement at Maple Grove.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Any questions or discussion?
Straightforward.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Accept quotes for IP paging system at elementary schools. Dr. Arkanoff.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. This evening, I'm recommending the board accept quotes for the IP paging system at the elementary schools. And Mr. Jason Taylor will provide you with some additional information.
Yes, on Friday, March 30th, we received 3 quotes for these projects. The quotes ranged in price from $296,700 to $334,492. I'm recommending that we accept the quote from Tech Electronics for $296,700. This project will be funded from the Walnut Grove bond for the amount of $175,000. The remaining funds needed will come from the technology general obligation bonds that we do every year. This project is going to fully replace all of the paging systems that we have in our elementary schools. Many are old, dated, and failing. We do pump money into these annually in support calls and maintenance tickets, and for most of them, they require outside servicing to change bell schedules and other features. Some of the other key changes we'll make here, by taking it to an IP system, we will achieve the ability of making corporation-wide paging calls when needed at our elementary schools at the start. Obviously, we'd look to take this to our secondary schools down the road. They have some newer systems, so they're in a little bit better shape. The clocks actually have a digital time stamp on them, but can change into words when needed during an emergency. They also can flash in a varying color LED as needed, which brings us into ADA compliance for mass communications. And finally, the other great thing that we will add is the old traditional call button that we'd had in every classroom will actually become a call/safe button. So in the event, God forbid, that we did have to enact a building lockdown, we can determine what spaces throughout the building very quickly have responded to us as safe, and where to send first responders or just to provide assistance or communicate with any space that we need to. So it achieves a number of our safety goals. It also brings us up to date in our technology and allows the new system to be fully supported by my department without some outside assistance. So it's a win-win. Obviously, it's a little bit of an expense, but we feel like that expense is very well warranted with the benefits the system would bring. I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we accept the quotes from Tech Electronics of Indiana Incorporated in the amount of $296,700 for IP paging systems at all elementary schools in the Center Grove School Corporation.
Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion? All those in favor signify by, I'm sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
So, let's see, 7.5, approve amended preschool services agreement. Dr. Arkanoff.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. This evening, I'm recommending that the board approve amended and restated preschool services agreement, and Dr. Gabriel is going to provide you with some additional information.
Thank you. Honey Grove has been providing our preschool, it's on,
Is it on? Okay.
it's green. Honey Grove has been providing our preschool program at the PRC building for the last school year under a contract that the board approved about a year ago. They approached us weeks ago and asked if they could consider expanding their program year-round, because the original agreement was that they would just offer it during school days. So we have worked with Jeff Quackenbush to revise the document, and you can see the changes that we made as we did this revision, and basically to expand the program to include, that really should say all work days. They're not going to run it on weekends, but they are going to run it on all work days except major holidays and the summer moratorium. And we will be charging a fee of $10,000. They're going to start this in the summer of next year, not this summer. So we'll begin that. That fee will begin in July 1 of 2019. And because of some licensing issues and the fact that we've not used the gym since they've taken it over, we've revised the contract to reflect that the gym is no longer shared, since we really didn't share it. So those are the three changes that are made in the contract, and we're asking the board to approve it this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the amended and restated preschool services agreement with Honey Grove Educational Center.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. Any questions or discussion for Dr. Gabriel?
Dr. Grable, you may have said this, and if you did, I apologize, maybe I didn't hear it. It said the annual fee charge will be $10,000?
Yes.
And that's under summary of significant changes? What did you say the current fee is?
We don't charge them a fee. We have not
Okay.
charged them a fee in the past. That was, the original agreement was that they would continue to run the program that we ran and always charge our employees less than other members of the public. So there isn't a current fee of any kind. So that's all a new fee.
And in exchange, they get it to themselves as opposed to shared?
Well, I mean, that's a minor point because they've had it.
Right.
But basically, we pay all the utilities. So in exchange, they get it for all the summer days and other spring and fall and winter break days. All those days, they'll continue to run the program.
So it would otherwise be sitting empty?
Yeah.
They're using it and pretty much covering our costs?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. Any other questions or comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
I'm gonna look down here to the two attorneys. So, Dr. Arkanoff asked me to table 7.6 after we approve the agenda. Can we just table that, or do I need a,
I would move to table it.
make a motion to table it?
And for the record, I don't have my attorney hat on tonight. I'm a board member, not counsel for the board.
Fair enough. I figured you guys were a little more up on Robert's Rule of Order than I was.
I was just going to make a recommendation that we do table 7.6 pending additional information.
Do I have a motion to table 7.6?
I would move to table 7.6 pending further information.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels and Mr.
Let the
Norman.
attorneys have it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
You wouldn't have been happy if I voted against that one, would you?
I contemplated it, by the way.
I thought voting against it just to
Then
make
he
a
would have
point.
turned to the educators and asked us.
Just for fun. All right, 7.7, approve of facility use procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. This evening, I'm recommending that the board approve the facility use procedures. If you remember, this was called in the past facility use guidelines, and we felt like facility use procedures was a more clear title for this document. And so the board has reviewed this in last couple of times, and so this is with those final changes for your approval.
Thank you, Dr. Arkanoff. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the new facility use procedures.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
All right. 7.8, additional appropriations hearing and resolution. Dr. Arkanoff.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. This evening is a hearing, so we'll need a motion to approve a resolution for additional appropriations in the general fund, and I believe that you're going to open up a hearing first.
That is correct. This evening's board meeting has been appropriately advertised as a hearing on additional appropriations. I now open this public hearing. I'd like to call on Dr. Gabriel to provide some additional information about these appropriations. He has a brief presentation.
Yes, brief. Board members have received this memo, which is on the screen. It describes the purpose of these two areas where we'd like to appropriate additional general fund dollars. The first one is $140,000 that will be the costs of implementing the TBRI program this summer and fall. Board members have had some introduction to that program. This is the initial one-time expense of training a large number of our staff on this. And so it's really appropriate as an expenditure that will be coming from our cash balance because it is just a one-time expense. We have put into the budget a small ongoing expense that will start to take place next year, and that's $140,000. The second one is $200,000, which is additional funds that needs to be paid to IU Health Systems. This is as a result of some confusion about the building over the past few years. And our approach to this is that we have absolutely received excellent services from them, and we feel that the money is owed to them. We've gone back and reviewed all of our invoices, and we've also implemented some procedures to make sure that we won't get behind like this in the future. But we are going to need that additional money to get caught up. So those are the two reasons for this additional appropriation, and I turn the hearing back to Mr. Alexander.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. This would be the appropriate time for members of the public to comment on the additional appropriations or the information presented this evening. Are there members of the public who would like to comment? Okay. Seeing none, I now close this public hearing. Are there any board members who have comments or questions? All right. Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the resolution for an additional appropriations in the general fund.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. All right. Are there, is there any other business or board reports to come before the board this evening?
I would just like to remind everyone that the Athletic Booster Club golf outing will be held June 7th over at Dice Walk. And if you do not have your foursome signed up, be sure and call me. I do have some brochures for you to fill out. And it promises to be a great day and some prizes and lots of good food. So please come and support your school corporation on June the 7th.
Thank you, Mrs. Toomey. Any other reports from any of the rest of the board members?
Mr. President, I have two brief things, hopefully brief. The first is, as most of you know, I just participated and graduated from the most recent class of Leadership Johnson County. I believe this is the 24th class. I want to just express my gratitude that I was sent by the school corporation for that experience. It was very worthwhile. I learned quite a bit, made a lot of good contacts. I feel really expanded my skills. I know that Mr. Proctor, the principal of Walnut Grove Elementary, he was in my class as well. It was good to get to know him better on a different level too. Also, I'd like, part of our project, we, as I've said before, supported and promoted CASA, the court-appointed special advocates for Johnson County, something near and dear to my heart, as I've spent most of my career advocating for children and children's rights, and that's what they do as well through the court system. And what we did is that we partnered with Rock the Block. That would happen April 21st. And first, I'd like to thank Dr. Long and Mrs. Conrad for both of them for one facilitating that. And our Student Activity Center is a great showcase for that wonderful facility and how it can be really used by the community at large. I know they put a lot of time and work and had a lot of discussions and challenges with it. I was on the committee because my group ran the Kids Run. So I'd like to thank both of them and the corporation for allowing that to be held here. We ended up raising $2,500 for CASA, which basically will provide Christmas for a couple of years for those at-risk and at-need children. So for me personally, it was very gratifying. So I want to thank everyone at the school corporation, Dr. Ockernoff, who recommended me as well for allowing me to participate in that program. So thank you very much. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And Mr. Norman, my apologies for not recognizing that. I know I know I cracked several jokes with you about it.
Right. No, it's yeah, that's no big deal. That's fine. But I was it was definitely time consuming and worthwhile, but it was a lot of work. The second part is, as most everyone knows, I'm the board's representative to C9, part of the governing board, and the board and work session touched on this a little bit today, but I just want to kind of publicly talk about briefly. At the last two C9 governing board meetings, as you know, there's obviously eight other board members from 8 other schools. We had a lengthy discussion, at least an hour long, about the role of trade, school, CTE, how that works with the school corporation, how that works with C9. It was a very good, robust discussion. And I've become, and I'm sure Mrs. Toomey feels the same way, as I've been on this board now for a year and a half, it's become very near and dear to my heart. I've become very passionate about these students and the services that are provided through C9. I'm very grateful we live in a community that has those type of services. But what came out of there is a couple things. Really, it was precipitated by a presentation done by 5 students, 4 from Center Grove, 1 from Whiteland. And it was about sheet metal working, is what it was, of all things. They always do a presentation of a different trade area. And really what came out of it was this. One of the students had no desire to ever go to college whatsoever. He went to C9, didn't really get a lot of guidance, wasn't really sure what it was. He ended up going there, was put in these competition, won it, got a full ride to Lincoln Tech, and his whole life has been changed. And really, these 4 students for Center Grove were so impressive, plus the Whiteland student as well, because they had clear focus, what they're doing with their life, how their life is going to look out, and what they want to do. And I found that impressive. And really what we, as all of the board members on C9, are bringing back to our boards is to challenge all of our boards and our administration to promote technical and trade skills and job skills within our own school corporation. Because we really do feel that it gets short shrift, and that we live in a society where there's sometimes just one path, and maybe that one path isn't best for everyone, and that it should all be seen as equal. There is going to be a dearth of trade and professional trade jobs coming. If it's not already here, it's coming soon, and we need those in this country. And I know that we've done STEM and promoted it here. I think that dovetails well with everything that's going on at C9. Those are STEM jobs, by the way, a lot of those jobs. So I really want to challenge all of us to make that more of our priority, give our students more of that as an equal choice, an equal path, not as secondary, oh, you didn't do X, this is what you're going to end up with, at a true secondary or true path for further education and careers. And I think that we need to do a better job of that, frankly. And not only as a school, but as a community, and to accept and promote that that is not only something that is justified, but it should be really attainable and something that they want to aspire to. These kids are so inspiring. I would encourage anyone to go over there to see C9, to visit it. They have a restaurant there for their that the students run, make the food, run it, and it's part of their technical trade. And it is really eye-opening, frankly. And I know Mrs. Toomey's on board with me for sure about this, but I just really want to challenge all of us to make this better priority. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means what we need to do. But the second real quick part of it is we as a governing board challenge C9 to do a better job of promoting themselves. This isn't just on us. We're partners with them. And they need to do a better job of promoting themselves and saying this is a great place to be and a great choice for your life, and not just we're here, come to us. Well, they need to do a much more robust job as well. So that's really what's happened in the last 2 meetings. I know I wasn't here last time to really discuss it, but I feel very, very strongly about this, and I know that we're going to keep moving forward with this. We're going to keep pushing Director Audi on this as well at C9, but I'm going to keep pushing us too. So that's kind of what I came back with for the last 2 meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Norman, and being a C9 alum, I appreciate your thoughts and comments about that, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Announcements. Actually, one other piece of business. I want to thank the board for their hard work today in the work session. We've been at it since 2 o'clock today, doing several good things about board goals and those types of things. I want to thank everybody for their hard work there. Announcements, we will be reconvening the executive session that we started earlier today. We had to suspend it. We have a topic we need to finish discussion on. We'll reconvene immediately after this meeting. Other announcements, May 28th, Memorial Day, no school. May 30th, the CGAA graduation. I always look forward to that every year. May 31st, woohoo, the last day of school. June 3rd is graduation, and June 21st is our next regular board meeting. And we are on site.
I just have to say one little trivia thing. You kind of jumped for joy because it was the last day of school. But when I was in elementary school, I cried the last day of school because I couldn't go to school any longer in the summertime. So that just gives us a different view of going to school.
Part of the woohoo is I have a senior that's, moving out in August.
I just had to say that.
All right, we're adjourned.
They never.
I know, I can't, I know.
Did the young man leave?
No.
He's a really smart kid.